Yo, where them Catholics at? Man, what's the matter with these bishops?
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's the Catholic Convert Show. And if I've got my days right, today's Friday, meaning that in just about an hour, you won't have to hear us for 2 days. So you've got that going for you, no matter how bad life looks right now. It is what it is, though. You can only do so much with what you got. And Ed is, of course, ecstatic because that means he's headed back out to the shore this weekend. He's going to overindulge in some Tzatziki and get his beachfront soprano on. Typical weekends for you, isn't it, Ed?
Most likely. You don't know it. That is, yeah. Boardwalk, beach, surfing, and sausage. But there was a guy last weekend who took it to an extreme. It's a big story here in Jersey because we have a problem with seagulls stealing French fries. And I don't know if this
I
news
saw
made it
that
out of the state of
headline.
New Jersey.
It's absolutely
this guy,
amazing. I saw the headline.
I had his French fries stolen by a seagull. So in front of family vacationers, he grabbed the seagull and ripped its head off.
Saw the headline.
So he's in a lot of trouble. You saw that?
the seagull shouldn't have taken his French fry. Just saying.
Well, yeah, but you don't go all soprano on the little bird.
When in Jersey, you do as the Jerseys do. That's an ancient saying, by the way.
Yeah, I guess so. Very ancient. Much like the ancient saying that all roads lead to Jersey.
Yeah, that one too. Oh, man. So I'll tell you what. I spend more time than I would like to.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I spend more time than I would like to on the internet. And most of it's just, working with my clients and handling, whether I'm writing books or editing books. And I'm very happy to report that most of the time when I'm looking at, editing projects, the authors that I'm editing for know what words mean. And there's no ambiguousness to definitions. Most of the time, there's been a couple where I'm like, oh, this guy thought he was smart and tried to make himself sound more photosynthesis. So he put that word in there and it didn't work. But for the most part, people know what words mean and they don't try to make these mental loop gymnastics in their head. But then we've got that crowd that when you ask them, hey, are you a Christian or are you Jewish? Are you Muslim? Are you atheist? Whatever. You have those ones that can't give you a definitive answer. They'll turn around and say something like, no, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. And you ask them to define what that means, and they can't. And to me, it's kind of like I want to have a baby, but I don't want to get pregnant or have labor pains or adopt or foster or any of those things, but I still want to have a baby. I'm like, well, doesn't work that way outside of, kidnapping a kid. But still, you get the point. You can't be spiritual, but not religious because you're missing ingredients. You don't make a cake and leave out 5 ingredients and expect it to be something that works, right? So when people say they're spiritual but not religious, they're usually the type that'll say, well, I believe the universe or some higher power is guiding all of us or created us for some celestial stardust purpose or whatever. It's a lot of mental gymnastics. And at the same time, they're rejecting any kind of formal religious institutions and their practices. So they're like, well, I do mindfulness, which I think mindfulness is a scam. It's like a marketing buzzword. I'm being mindful. So you think about stuff. Okay. And then there's, they meditate, they do yoga, and they do all this other kind of, uh, m- I guess, mental justification of their personal well-being and connection to, the great spirit in the sky. Here's looking at you, Norman Greenbaum. But you can't separate spirituality from religion. Like if you look at the Catholic Church, for example, spirituality is just one element. It's that personal relationship with God that's expressed through communal worship, participation in the sacraments, adherence to the church teachings, and also the engagement that you have with the community of, I guess you could call them co-believers, your fellow Catholics, right? It's not about personal feelings or experiences. It's about living a life that is oriented towards one true thing. And we've talked about truth not being subjective before, right? But even if you look at it from a historical context, spirituality and religion are impossible to untangle from one another. Yeah. And again, going back to the Catholic Church, our understanding of spirituality is rooted in the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, as well as the practices of the early church. We've got the saints, the church father, and then countless faithful throughout the centuries, over 2,000 years, that have demonstrated how true spirituality is lived out within a specific context of the Catholic Church. And you could say it's the same thing for people who are Jewish, people who are Muslims. The spirituality is only possible and lived out within the confines and context of that religious institution. And I don't think people realize that. They I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want the baby without the labor pains. I want to uh, be fat and fit. It's not. It doesn't work. It's oxymoronical to try to put those two together. And there's dangers that come with I'm spiritual but not religious, because the first thing you end up with is this lack of guidance and authority. So without any kind of teachings or any kind of authority of, and I'll use Catholicism, and for everybody listening, they can compare this with their own denominations or faiths or whatever. But without teachings and the authority of the church, these individuals who are spiritual but not religious, they end up creating their own set of beliefs and their own moral codes. And then that spirals down into moral relativism, where there's no absolute truth and whatever's right and wrong is up to the individual. But that's not how it works. Well, I don't believe stealing is wrong. Okay, it's still wrong. But no. My morality is subjective. No, it isn't. You're just immoral. That's different. Right? This is not the participation trophy thing where you get credit for just showing up and I have morals. They differ from yours. So you don't have morals. Got it. Cool. But that authoritative entity, the church in this example, it's what gives a framework that guides the moral and spiritual development. And it helps us understand and live our lives according to God's will. And it's something that we can build on. It's that foundation. But then you also have the side of things where you're isolated. Well, I believe the universe is this, and the spirits of the sky and the celestial divine greater power. Okay, it's equitable to the 40,000 different Protestant denominations. I had someone the other day get mad at me and say I was being insincere when I said there was 40,000 different denominations, but throughout history there have been 47,000. So I'm sorry, sir, that
You were being kind.
I'm sorry, sir, but my numbers were conservative.
Yeah, exactly.
But you start to lose this one very important aspect of your spiritual life, which is accountability and opportunities for growth. Right? Well, I don't have any ruler, this guideline to measure myself against, so I don't need to worry about improving. I'm just floating along in the stars, man. And that's not how it works either, because it creates this overall communal misunderstanding where everybody has a different understanding of what true spirituality is. So again, in the Catholic sense, it involves this relationship with God that you have that's nurtured through the sacraments and the teachings of the church. And it's about this transformative connection with God that it's not self-centered, it's God-centered, it's truth-centered. And it doesn't focus on this individual satisfaction. It focuses on surrendering to the one and only truth and living out your life in a communal context with that truth. And then you also end up with syncretism, which is people it's where these people pick and choose all these different belief systems from different religions. So they're like, well, I think Buddha was right about this. I think Thor was right about this. Jesus was an okay guy, and he was right about remember when he said thou shalt not judge or be judged? Yeah, because I'm pretty sure he said that. And the Taoists believe this, and that kind of makes sense. But then Zeus said this, so that makes sense. And you end up with all these elements of various religious traditions are mixed together in a way that are incompatible with truth. And the only time you see syncretism is when there's an uncomfortable truth that says you're not great as you are, which guess what? You're not as great as you're not great as you are. If you're not improving, you're failing. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Maintenance is a scam. You're growing more stagnant and you're beginning to rot, because you should always be striving to better align yourself with an ultimate truth. And obviously that ultimate truth is God, but for the sake of understanding that not everybody believes in God, maybe they are full on Buddhists, maybe they are full on Muslims or Jews or Hindus or whatever. If there's a truth, for example, in Catholicism or basically all Christianity, it's an absolute objective truth that abortion is immoral. It is the taking of an innocent life. Now, if you want to go through and follow every single possible tenet of the Christian faith, and you're happy and you're going along, and then you find, oh well, I don't like this one because I think abortion should be the person's choice, and I don't think it should be considered immoral. The reality is, well, it's too damn bad because it's immoral. But when syncretism comes in, they go and look at, oh, well, this obscure faith over here believes that abortion is completely fine. So I'm going to adopt that little belief. And then you're going along and you're going along and you're going along and you go, I don't like this one either. Thou shalt not steal. Well, this faith says it's not really stealing because everything belongs to everyone. So I'll take that one. And all it is it's all self-centered. You're trying to pick and choose all these different elements of all these different faiths because, well, some of them are just inconvenient and they're too hard to follow. Well, them being hard to follow is kind of the point. But that's what you end up with. And you end up with there's nothing cohesive. And you have this warped understanding of faith and this warped understanding of morals. And you're like the guy that built his house on sand. Every single time you think, okay, I'm lined up with all of these different various beliefs. Another one comes along and you go, I'm going to have to get rid of this one too and find one that fits. And it's a never, it's a Sisyphean effort because you're always going to be having to move the goalpost again. And the simple fact is, if there's one objective truth, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Hindu, whether you're Buddhist, whatever, then you follow all of that to the letter, whether they're inconvenient to you or not. Well, I don't agree. It doesn't matter if you agree. God didn't ask your opinion. He told you. And you can insert whatever equivalent to God there is in whatever various faith, and it still applies. It's not asking your opinion. It's telling you what is. And you, as a human, are not significant and are not important enough to say otherwise. Because after all, you're just a dirty human like the rest of us.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot I'm talking to Saint Ed over here.
That's right.
But I always see this, especially, and look, people, I'm tired of giving these disclaimers out when it comes to stereotypes. But when I think of the people who say, well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, it always comes down to those weird white chicks with dreadlocks who want to have healing crystals all over the house. That's the first thing that pops into my head. This is Tahitian jade. Ma'am, that's a piece of an old beer bottle, but okay. It's like the first thing that comes into mind is, well, I'm spiritual and I'm getting energy from the universe. You're not. But and at the same time, she'll be like, that's not very Christian of you. If you say something judgmental about it. Well, okay. It's a lot of relativism. Well, it's relative to me. And the syncretism is probably the worst of it. Because when you adopt all these different tenets of all these different faiths to suit you, it's only done out of convenience, meaning I can finally say I'm fine as I am because I took a poll and I picked and pulled until I found and made a custom set of rules that works for me. Well, then the next guy is going to have his own custom set. And then the next guy is going to have his own custom set. But then there's no universality to it.
Yeah.
But to me, it's picking and choosing. It's all about, I want to be as I am without having any accountability, without having to change anything about me, because I shouldn't have to. And It's selfish and it's self-centered.
It is. Isn't that why, you said, say 40,000 denominations, say 47,000, say 147,000, doesn't really matter. If there's more than one, doesn't it come down to that being self-centered? I was talking about that with someone yesterday about in order to have unity, you have to have humility. And if you don't have that humility to accept that there is only one truth, it leads to disunity. And that's the issue. And so you want to follow your truth instead of this other truth. So, you start your little church on the corner, and then one of your 50 little congregants eventually disagrees with you, and they start their little church on the corner. And then one of his congregants disagrees with him and starts his. So, this is the way we got into this is because, there are objective truths, like you say all the time. And
I
the
believe it
fact
was
that,
I believe the way this all kind of came down to it,
yeah,
especially within Christianity, was because
yeah,
of that sauerkraut sandwich eating goon. What was his name? What was her name again? Martin Luther? Yeah.
something like that. But that's the thing is that, there are objective truths. And if you don't agree with that objective truth, or if you and Tom and Sally can't agree on that objective truth, it doesn't change the fact that there is an objective truth there. I mean, it doesn't take a consensus for something to be true. If something's true, it's true, regardless of how many people agree with it or not. And that's the issue we have. And you're talking that whole spiritual but not religious. That's just another way of saying I'm lazy. You know,
It's a cop
I
out.
it's a cop out. I understand that there's a higher being. I understand that um, I should look into this. I should do something about it. But you know what?
Really knows what it is, man.
Nobody really- yeah, because it's easier to say that. It's easier to say because it's going to take some work. I mean, you look at your journey. You look at the journey of Mike Pantile, who we had on, of a couple of guys we've had on who knew that there was a truth out there and said, I'm going, instead of just saying I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, or it doesn't matter what religion you follow, you said, no, I want to know what the truth is. Whether I'm going to be disappointed, whether I'm going to be upset, whether I'm going to be happy, whatever it is, I'd rather know the truth. But somebody decided, well, it's easier on you if instead of searching for the truth, you just create your own truth. It just makes life so much easier. And so let's just do that. We can all have our own truth. And it's amazing to me that people are okay with that. I had a discussion on X this morning. People telling me that I'm part of a cult because I believe that there's a God.
You're correct.
And okay, well,
You're
yeah,
correct. I mean, there are three elements of a religion that have
Yeah.
to be there.
Yeah.
Cult is one of them. So yes, you're correct. You should totally join this one.
Well, that's what I told him. I said, well, yeah, at least I'm in the right cult, I'm not a Satanist or something like that. But it just, and then they'll throw out these things like, well, every war in history, someone's actually said to me, every war in history has been started over religion. Look it up. Get a book, fella. I love that one. And so you don't want to bring up communist China. You don't want to bring up communist Soviet Union. You don't want to bring up any of those because those are atheists who got it right. And them killing tens of millions of people was just what needed to be done at that particular point.
Well, let's take this deeper. Ed. They might be onto something. If we take this even deeper, every single war in all of history has been started by humans.
Whoa.
Maybe we should just get rid of them. And then everybody can live happily ever after.
Yeah. And because then
correlation is not causation.
Exactly. And then the whole thing.
But the people who argue, but the people who argue that, well, every war was started by religion. The Civil War wasn't. That was started, according to everybody, over slavery. But anyway, let's just leave that one out because that's the exception to the rule. But mainly what I was getting to is the people that do believe that every single war was started over religion can't spell correlation or causation.
Well, that's true. And then the other argument that was being made this morning was that you don't need God in order to be a good person. That man would have just
you're technically
out.
Right. You're technically right. You don't have to follow a religion to be a morally good person. However, you can't deny where those morals came from.
Well, that's exactly the point.
So
that's exactly the point. it's whether, I mean, you can deny that there's a God, but there is a reason that you have a moral compass, and whether you want to agree with it or not, again, it's one of those objective truths. Whether you want to agree with it or not, it's because there is a God. I mean, if without a God, there is no good versus evil. There is no right versus wrong. It would just be, we would be like other animals who just do what they need to do to survive and exist and to move forward. You wouldn't have empathy, for instance, without God. I know a lot of people that don't have any empathy, but that's another story. But you can't. I don't know. And then they'll say that, oh yeah, we would have just figured it out. Or we have figured it out, despite the fact that there is no such thing as a God. We have figured out as humans to be moral individuals, and that's not actually true, because by and large, people who consider themselves to be atheists, honestly, I mean, yeah, there are some very good atheists. There certainly are.
Yeah.
But if you look at the broader picture, right, exactly. But if you look at the broader picture, you divide things up, like what do you think is okay? What do you think is moral? Whatever, you're more likely to find an atheist who says abortion is moral than you are to find a Christian who says that abortion is moral. You're more likely to find an atheist who says euthanasia is moral than you are to find a Christian who says euthanasia is moral. And because they don't see life as being a gift from God, so stopping it from occurring or stopping it towards the end, they would see that, like, euthanasia is a great example, because they would see ending a life, if someone is physically suffering, and ending it unnaturally, is the moral thing to do, because they don't believe there is a God. So they don't believe that there's something waiting for that person on the other side of this life. They don't believe that there's a reason that you live the life you have here in a certain way in order to achieve what you're hoping to achieve in the next life. They just, once you're dead, you're dead. We put you in a box and put you in the ground, and that's it. People come and put blankets on your grave every Christmas. Although I guess they wouldn't celebrate Christmas either, so it's another story.
Yeah, I guess not.
But to tell me that man would be a moral creature without a God, I think is ludicrous, because I don't think that morality exists outside of God. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. And look, I get it. This is going to be difficult for me to face, because I deeply, deeply, deeply believe in this thing. Well, I'll tell you something. The example I'll use is abortion. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, I kind of struggled halfway with it, being totally and completely against it from a previous point of view that I held. And that point of view was, if the people who hate me, if the people who hate family values, if the people who are constantly going after people who just want to be left alone and raise their wife, marry their wife, raise their kids, and they want to bring war to the family unit, and they want to destroy everything that we as a Western society have tried to build, if they want to off their own bloodline, that just means my kids won't have to deal with more people like that in the future. That was literally my point of view.
Wow.
Because I stopped there. I didn't continue it on with, yeah, but not every child that comes from these people end up the same way.
Yeah.
That child did not do anything to deserve to have its life snuffed out. I stopped there because I was only thinking about me, right?
Yeah.
But then when I became a Catholic, I was like, you know what? That was a really terrible view that I had. It was absolutely terrible. Now, I'm not going to deny that it wasn't practical on paper.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's, again, practical to me,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
practical and not at all acceptable
Yeah.
for any of God's creation.
Yeah.
These innocent, unborn children that are equally loved by God as everyone else, who are just as deserving of life as everyone else.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm kind of disgusted with myself. And it was that real deep Catholic guilt. You know, I think I confessed to that 3 times in my first confession because I felt so terrible about it once I came to the realization.
Yeah.
And the priest is like, yeah, you said that already. You got anything else?
No, that's it.
I'm like, no, but I'm like, yeah, yes, there's more, but I want to make sure you heard that part.
You
And
I got it.
I totally expected to walk out of my first confession thinking like, all right, I'm gonna have to go over here to the parking lot and like self-flagellate with a leather strap across my back for an hour and a half, and then
You were going to do that
go
anyway.
home and walk home on my knees
Yeah.
this 40-minute drive, you know,
Yeah.
as my penance. Because that's
Yeah.
how terrible I felt about all of it once it finally clicked for me. And there's been plenty of other things where I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't like this at all.
Mm.
Doesn't matter if I like it. I just have to suck it up and deal with it because it's the law. Pretty much. It's God's law. You follow this. Yeah, but I don't agree with it. It doesn't matter if I agree with it. You know, there's plenty of things out there that I disagree with in like man's law, right? Oh, yellow light. That means speed through. I don't care what anybody says. And I'm going to do it. Obviously, there's consequences that come with that, right? But some of these consequences can be avoided on Earth because you don't get caught. Everybody gets caught in the end when it comes to God's law. Because it's not like, oh, well, I died, but I'm going to hide behind that bush. It's not how it works. And I love God, and I don't do these things because I'm afraid of being punished. I don't adhere to God's law because I'm afraid of going to hell. I do it because I want to be with God. Because it's a huge difference between running away from hell and running towards heaven. Right? But I felt so ashamed of myself for those views. And a lot of people just don't want to feel that shame. Well, I'm ashamed, and I don't want to have to change this view because then it'll be inconvenient for me. Suck it up, Buttercup. That's what you got to do.
That's one of the arguments someone was using with me this morning, is that I don't do things because I love God. I do them because I fear being punished by Him, and that's a horrible way to live, of living in constant fear that you're going to be punished if you don't do this list of things that God gives you to do. And of course, they were coming from this position that there actually is no God, and this was one of their ways of showing that, is that there wouldn't be, if there was a God, He wouldn't be one that was following you around, punishing you for all these bad things you do. And of course,
which is awesome because that's not what God does.
Exactly, right. And then, but I was like,
you are correct again, sir. We're on the same page so far.
Well,
let's complete the picture. Keep going.
Keep going, yeah. And the other thing, and going back to the whole abortion thing, is people saying, well, it would be, if you're not putting God in the equation, it's the moral thing to do to abort if the kid is going to be born into a poor family, if the kid may or may not have some sort of an illness or a disease that they're born with and stuff like that. So because their thought process being they are going to suffer throughout their life. Well, okay, that would be a horrible thing if this life was all you had.
Well, it's good to know that nobody, it's really good to know that all the people that have been born to wealthy families and that have been born without any illnesses have never had to suffer in their lives.
Exactly, right? I mean, it's such a ridiculous statement. And of course, we all know that everyone who has been born into poverty has suffered greatly and cursed their parents their entire lives. Nobody has ever risen above poverty. Not once in the entire history of our world, no one has risen out of poverty.
Y'all, I grew up in a trailer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've heard the stories of my father, and I mean, ridiculous poverty, and he winds up being one of the engineers that designed the Verrazano Bridge, which was the largest suspension bridge in the entire world when it was built. I mean, so somehow he managed. He rose above. I'm not saying that the bridge wouldn't exist if my father had been aboard it, but but he moved above. I mean, he was in the Navy. He was an engineer. He did all these things, and he was born into phenomenal poverty. And
I got a buddy of mine. I got a buddy of mine. He didn't even know he was poor growing up until he went to school, and he realized that all the other kids didn't have dirt floors. He's like, "What do you mean you've got wood for floors?" Like, we would walk around on dirt.
But that's the thing.
We're like, what?
And there are there are people that live a life of poverty. There are people that are going to suffer greatly from physical ailments to their life, but it's not about this life, and that's what people don't get. This is preparation. This is our trip home. This is how do you handle what this world throws at you? That's going to determine where you wind up for your eternity, and that's what I think. So it's such a difficult concept for atheists in particular to understand. Like if I use those arguments if I use those arguments while I'm talking to them, saying that the amount that you suffer in this lifetime, whether it's physical, emotional, economic, whatever, that's not what it's about. You don't make these life-altering and life-ending decisions based on those things. That's ludicrous. I mean, you think, but what if you got to be 20, 21 years old or whatever, and you finally met this person that you felt like was your, and I hate the term, but we'll say soulmate, and you desperately love this person, and you wind up getting married to them and having a life together and stuff like that. Well, what if you find out that person was born in abject poverty? That person suffered all sorts of debilitating illnesses while they're young. Should you say at that point, well, it would, instead of me running into you and us falling in love and stuff, it would have been better if you had been aborted way back when. You're not going to feel that way. You're going to feel totally differently, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to look at it differently because you're going to see who they became. You're going to see how they dealt with what they were given in life. And so that's the thing. There's one person who gets to decide when we die, and it's not any of us. It's just simply God. He's the guy who gets to decide. I'm sure. Listen, I think we all know someone who has made a decision based on those criteria of whether or not someone is going to be poor, whether or not someone might suffer physically, mentally, economically throughout their life, and made a decision based on that. And you don't make decisions based on those things. You don't make life-altering decisions based on those things, I should say, or life-ending decisions. It's crazy. But
look, I'll say this. I do not believe that anyone legitimately goes into an abortion clinic and says, I can't have another kid because I'm already poor.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could literally just give the kid up for adoption.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Every single person that says, well, I did it for economical reasons. No, you did it for selfish reasons.
Yeah.
Now listen, I'm too young. It's gonna alter my educational trajectory. It's gonna change my career. It's gonna ruin my dreams of competing in the Olympics. Whatever. Right? All of those things. It was gonna take something from me. It's selfish. Every single decision that I've ever said, oh, my kid was going to be born with Down syndrome. It would have been so hard to raise that kid. Also about you. My kid was going to be born with a disease, and the odds were that they were not going to live past 2 months old. I don't think I could deal with that. Also about you. Because miraculous things happen almost every single day. It's wild to think about, but I know at least 9 or 10 people that are not supposed to be alive right now because when they were younger, either when they were just children, I mean, like, I don't know, I'll say like elementary school age, or when they were just born, something happened to them or something was wrong with them, one of those two cases, and they were not expected to live, and their parents had to go ahead and prepare for burying their child. But they're here now. I'm not sure what Ed just did. He decided he was going to walk away from the microphone. Maybe he's feeling guilty about being selfish in his own life, which is understandable. I get it. It happens.
I apologize. The next door neighbor decided to be an awesome time to walk past my open window with a leaf blower. And so, no, great. Now he's gone. But anyway, but that was not good. But of course,
all of the decisions are selfish.
Of course.
I couldn't deal with the heartbreak. I couldn't deal with the amount of effort that I would have to put into it. I couldn't deal with losing this opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a selfish reason. And you chose to murder an innocent child because of it.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't watched an award show in years because I can't stand the vapid people that are up there receiving awards for this, that, or the other thing. But you'll see the film clips the next day. And how many times you see someone up there holding that big old trophy and they say, I got this because I had 3 abortions when I was 20. I'm a huge success with my music career because I had an abortion when I was 16. I'm a big movie star because I had an abortion when I was whatever. I mean, okay, so you wouldn't have been a musician. You wouldn't have been a movie star. Who cares?
But here's the question. How do you know you wouldn't have been if you just had
exactly.
the kid?
I mean, you got to factor that in too. But I mean, okay, so you're saying to me that
I can't delay my own gratification. I would rather kill this child.
Right. You're saying that this copper, brass, whatever little statuette they just gave you has more value to you, is going to look better on your shelf than the 10 or 12-year-old you would have had now, who was making you proud with their achievements and just being alive, really. But if they were,
I never kept my 10 or 12-year-old on a shelf. But
well,
I get your point.
The trophy was on a shelf. The
trophy's going to look better on yourself than the child.
Exactly. But it's like, wait, what? No, but you see what I'm saying, though. I mean, I cannot watch another one of those shows where they get up there and say, I owe this all to my abortions. And before someone puts in the comments, whatever, that doesn't happen. Yeah, do a quick little Google search. It does. I can give you some names of some actresses and some singers and stuff who've said that. I mean, right off the top of the bat is that Stevie Nicks famously said there would be no Fleetwood Mac if I hadn't had an abortion. And it goes on from there. And I'm thinking, okay, you know what? If there never was a Fleetwood, I love their music, but my life would have gone on just fine if I didn't have.
I'm gonna tell you what, I really don't understand how being pregnant affects your singing voice. But all right, sure.
It doesn't. Maybe she would have had to work harder. Maybe she would have had to. Maybe the group would have started.
I would have had to. I would have had to have taken a little bit of time to go have a baby.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me?
I think that they
you know how many of these singers and celebrities that I've seen that go on tour and they were literally having their babies on their tour bus. Like, come on.
Yeah, I know. Listen, but
it was going to be hard, so I had to make a choice to murder someone.
Exactly. They say it out loud in kind of an attempt to convince themselves that they made the right choice, I think. I mean,
Well,
that's
that's
just my
all.
guess.
It's the same. That's all it is. It's
It's
an attempt
psychological.
to convince themselves. It's the same
Yeah.
that I was talking about with the syncretism. It's well, I'll find this other thing from this other faith tradition that
Yeah.
fits this, because
Yeah.
if I do enough squinting and turning my head to the side, this custom moral code of living that I'm going to follow is perfect. And I don't
Yeah.
have to keep moving this. And it's nothing more than a way of attempting to justify you not being willing
Yeah.
to do anything hard.
There's a lot of times in life where we have to make a choice between, at that moment, what is going to be right or what is going to make us happy. And we've
I'll
kind
give
of
you a
flipped
snap
that.
scenario on that. A very
Yeah.
hard decision,
Sure.
because people have asked me this question.
Mhm.
What would you do if you had to choose? Your wife's pregnant and she could either have an abortion and the baby would live,
Mhm.
or she'd kept the baby and she would die. Well, what about
Mhm.
if they would both die? Well, as much as I hate it, I honestly don't think I could, with any amount of justification, say kill the kid,
Exactly.
because I really don't know what's going to happen.
You know.
And if by some miracle she survives, or they both survive, or she loses the baby naturally,
Mhm.
I didn't make the decision to end someone's life,
Yeah. You do what's
because
right.
you cannot do something evil to commit a good. You can't
Yeah.
do that. And people hear me say that and they go, "You would let your wife die." Well, I can't let her live. I can't let her die any more than I let her live. It's not my decision to kill someone.
Exactly. It's not really a choice you're making. And the thing
Oh,
is,
yeah,
the
I'm not
problem is,
making a choice. I'm saying I didn't make a
exactly.
choice to let my wife die. I made a choice to not
Exactly.
kill an innocent child.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's exactly my point. And then
How could
but
you
we
live with that? It would be hard. That's the answer. It would be hard
it would
waking
be
up
hard.
every day and seeing my child survive, remembering that my
Yeah.
wife passed away, and I have to be a single father now, which I got to feel sorry for my kids, because I would make a terrible single father. There's no way I could do this without my wife's backup. But guess
Exactly.
what? I'm going to have to struggle and muddle through, because
Yeah.
I cannot do that one thing of taking an innocent life of an unborn
Right.
child just because it would make my life easier.
Yeah. And the problem with this whole concept of choosing between what's right and what would make you happy is that at some point we decided to conflate the two and say
Mhm.
that what makes me happy obviously is what's right, and that's not always the case. In fact, it's quite often not the case. So to say that, well, it must have been the right choice because
Pineapple on pizza is a good example of that. It might make you happy, but it's not right.
exactly, and I say that to the CCD kids in class. I'll say, mom and dad left you home on your own one night because they were going to go out and they thought, oh, you're 13, 14, you can handle yourself on your own. Just don't do anything too stupid and get to bed on time, blah, blah, blah. And the kid decides, well, here's my opportunity. I'm gonna down 4 liters of Coke. I'm gonna have 5 bags of Doritos. And okay, while you're doing that, you're happy as a clam. You've never been happier. The next morning, you probably are not going to be very happy at all. As you're curled up in a ball on the floor with the world's biggest stomach ache. So doing what makes you happy is not necessarily what's right. But we've decided somewhere along in our society that that's all it takes. If it makes you happy, it's the right decision. How many times have you heard people say that to each other? Whatever makes you happy. Whatever makes you happy. I mean, no, not whatever makes you happy. That's such an idiotic thing to say to somebody, especially someone who's struggling with a decision. Why would you say, oh, well, whatever makes you happy? What if, I mean, there's some people that going on a killing spree might be what makes them happy. I don't think that's really good advice.
You know what
I
would
mean,
make me happy? If I burned down that orphanage, listen,
Exactly,
I'm not going
right?
to tell you. I'm not going to tell you to do whatever makes you happy. I'm going to say, don't burn down that orphanage.
Exactly.
Maybe go talk to a mental health care professional, and also don't leave my site until I find someone to keep an eye on you.
Yes, and remember when I asked you to babysit my kids this coming weekend? We're gonna revisit that. It's
Yeah,
probably not
we'll
gonna
come
happen.
back to it. Right
We'll
now,
come
we're going to
back to
put a
it.
pin in. We'll put a
Put a
pin in
pin in
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing. But that goes back to the whole thing we started the conversation with, which is basically relativism and the havoc that it creates. You can't have everyone can't have their own truth. And but I tell you what, I can't tell you how many times on X that's what it comes down to when having a discussion with somebody. Someone will say, "Well, maybe that's your truth. It's not my truth." What do you mean it's not your truth? What do you mean? I mean, even if let's use the argument that I'm wrong with what I'm saying to you is wrong. Okay, it doesn't negate the fact that somewhere out there is an actual truth regarding this issue we're discussing. Maybe I got it
Exactly.
wrong, but there is still a truth. I got to keep looking for it. You got to keep looking for it. But don't say that you can have a truth and I can have a truth and Bob can have a truth. And I mean, that's just ludicrous. This is why we find ourselves in a situation we find ourselves in. You walk out that door.
Yeah.
It's not pretty out there.
Yeah, I know. Oh man, I had so many people angry with me yesterday to the point where I received a grand total of 12 death threats.
Jeez.
I did. 12 death threats in my social media DMs. All because I said I pray for people. Well, what if they don't want you to? I pray for them anyway. So you don't have their consent to pray for them. And look, I don't even like, I'm like, I try to be super charitable. I do. But when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, are you stupid? Because listen, as harsh as it may seem, some people are legitimately stupid.
Oh yeah.
They're like, that's an objective truth. Some people are stupid.
Yes.
And I got called a predator for praying for people. And I was like, wait, is it the phonetics that are messing you up? I'm saying praying with an A, not with an E.
Mm-hmm.
Predators prey on people, but that's with an E. I'm praying for people, pray with an A. And obviously they couldn't figure out that difference. It was such a weird thing to the point where if you pray for me, I'll kill you. What? Okay, Dennis, go sit down. Such a weird thing.
Because you know what the issue is that when you're having a discussion with somebody and you get to the point where you say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to pray for you," it really annoys them because they see that they can't break you, they can't stop your way of thinking, they can't, they didn't have the real got you moment that proved to you that there is no God and you're wasting your time and everything. You're saying that you're going to pray for them, and they're like, this idiot still doesn't get it. I hate them. There is no God. Leave me alone. Blah blah blah. Whatever. So when you say someone says
it
to
came
me,
down to I was like, well, you know who else doesn't believe in consent? Rapists. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
These things aren't related, but okay. All right, sure.
No.
So
prayer,
yes, for all of you out there, I am predatorily praying for you against your will. I'm violating your boundaries. And your human rights. What was it? Mel Gibson on Father Stu. When Mark Wahlberg's like, "I'm going to pray for you, Dad." He's like, "Don't you dare! That's a violation of my human rights."
Exactly.
Because his dad was super anti-Catholic. That's what it reminds me of. I got to go back and watch that movie again. It was so awesome.
I tell you, what really frosts their flakes though is when they give you grief about praying for them and don't you dare pray for me and stuff. You just come back with, now I'm going to pray for you even harder.
Oh yeah, I'm going to pray.
They
for
hate
you
that one.
I'm going to make it super strong, and I'm going to do a whole decade of a rosary just for you.
Stop. Good stuff there.
Well, it's offensive to pray for people who don't want to be prayed for. I mean, that's something for you to take up between. That's something for you and your therapist to discuss, because that's not true at all. But yes, it was such a weird day. And I woke up and, of course, people were still arguing, no longer arguing with me about it, but arguing with each other about it. I'm like, oh, cool. Free impressions. I'm good with this now.
Well, think about this. I mean, okay, if someone is saying to you that they are offended, they're whatever they are by you praying for them, that's kind of like
offended. I'm Jeff.
Yeah, but it's kind of like you saying, you better stop thinking about me. I can tell that you're thinking about me. You better stop it. You know what I mean? It's insane.
Yeah. A lot of people are not smart. That's objectively true.
Yes.
Super sad, but it's objectively true. Because it was such a weird day. And what was funny is, even among the atheists that did not want me praying for them, too bad, atheists, I did it anyway. Actually, last night, I said a prayer for every atheist on earth. Nice. So you were covered under the blanket prayer, right? I did that. And I also did it for all non-Christians and non-believers. So got you all covered in that blanket prayer.
You are just an offensive. You are just an offensive guy.
I'm a predator. That's what it really is. Right?
You are.
I'm a predator.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just market that.
Predator.
Predator.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like a speech impediment. It was so weird. But like I was saying, even across all these different atheists who had they all still had different opinions on what it meant to be praying for someone. But no, he doesn't need your consent to pray for you. Yes, he does. So even they didn't have any normal consensus. It was, again, it was syncretism across the atheists. It was super wild to see. But man, this one ran way too long, and we've only got 3 minutes, so I don't think we have time for your Vatican archive piece. Because look, I'm gonna look, if it's something cool, I'm gonna have questions, and then we won't have time to get to them, and you won't be able to explain it in time. And if it's something that sucks and we don't do it anyway, I just saved you the embarrassment of doing it.
Wow, you're always thinking about me.
I'm always thinking of you.
You are,
even when you don't want me to think.
I find that offensive that you're always thinking of me. You better stop doing it.
Sure.
you damn predator.
Right. Yeah. Just grow some dreadlocks and get 3 little laser pointers.
Exactly.
The predator. Okay. Yeah. All right. All right.
You got it.
That was a dumb joke.
But
all right, we got nothing else for you. It's the end of the show. We're out of things to discuss and talk about because we beat it to death. That's what we did. Gee, I don't even know what to say anymore. I guess thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks for subscribing, and thanks for sharing this with all of your anti-Catholic friends, especially the ones that don't want you praying for them. They don't want to be prayed for.
Yes.
And you're a predator for praying for them against their will. This is a call to pray for people against their will. So I want all of you to join me in being a predator. And I guess we'll see you Monday.
I guess so. And get yourself to church on Sunday.
Unless one of these 12 people make good on their threat. And it's a good thing I'm going to confession tomorrow. So.
I think you'll be all right. Nobody's going to make the trip.
I think I'll be there. Yeah, no one wants to come down here. It's a
Nobody
terrible
wants
place
to go down there.
Absolutely terrible place to live.
Exactly.
No one should ever move here, especially people from California or New York or Ohio.
Yeah, that is true.
Or Michigan. Don't move down here. Anyway, all right.
All right.
Let's wrap it up, Ed.
Let's do it. Have a great weekend.
All right.
And God bless
have a good one. We'll see you Monday. God bless all of you, even the atheists that don't want God to bless them.